I am. How are you, Ryan?
Awesome, good. It's great to talk to you today.
Yeah, nice to see you.
So briefly, we're talking with Mark Lipton today. Mark, could you tell me about yourself and what you do?
Sure. Well, right now, I've spent my entire business in the paint, my entire career in the paint industry. Right now, I'm working for Benjamin Moore as a strategic consultant, and basically, what I'm doing is just helping them with some communications between their corporate structure and their customers. This is a new gig for me. I'm on about day four.
Oh, awesome.
Up until October 15th, I had owned my own Benjamin Moore stores. They had been in my family for 112 years, and I just sold them a month ago.
Wow. That's a big move.
Big change. Big change. First off, I've gone from working in an environment where I was 100% exclusively the boss, as well as just a small, sort of fast moving environment, to a place where I'm about 300 on the seniority list around here. Out of about 299, I'm about 300, and things move a lot slower in a corporate environment, but I'm having a great time. Yeah.
Awesome. And you're also a coding inspector.
I am. I do some work as a coatings inspector. I do think for the next year or so, this job is going to take over just a lot of that time. But I work as a coatings inspector as well, and I've done other consulting, but all within the paint industry.
Oh, awesome. This is off topic. Well, maybe not, but what's the most interesting inspection job you ever had to do?
Oh man, I had this job once. This is so funny. I had this job once where the guy was complaining of delamination, right? So in other words, the coating had separated from the underlying substrate. And I went to see the job as a complaint, and the coating looked absolutely flawless. It was perfect. It wasn't peeling anywhere. And I was like, what's the problem? And so he showed me this one area. It was like a mechanic's bay. And he showed me this one area of the floor where you could step on it and the coating would move up and down, almost like a laminate floor hadn't been installed properly. So we ended up having no choice but to break the coating to see what was going on underneath there. And the concrete underneath the coating had been decimated. It was just destroyed. It was crumbled. And so I told him, like, what were you thinking? How do you paint this? And it turns out that he didn't. The floor was in perfect condition. An engine had fallen out of a car after they painted it. It broke the concrete underneath, but not the coating.
Oh, wow.
And that was one of the strangest things I've ever seen on a paint job. I don't even know like how that was possible.
That's amazing. We had a similar experience with a floor, and we went out to do the inspection, and our coating was completely stuck to the concrete, to the substrate. And when he showed us the failed coating, it had about a 2-inch piece of concrete attached to the back end of it.
Right.
So some people
Right.
don't
It
understand,
is.
but
Listen, it's nice to be able to comfortably look at the customer and say, I know it's not a coatings problem.
yeah,
Right. If I'm holding 2 inches of concrete in my hand and it's attached to my paint, I'm pretty sure it's not a coatings problem.
you became a coating inspector while you owned the paint store.
Yeah. So a number of years ago, maybe 25 years ago, Benjamin Moore made a big push there. It's not so much of their business now, but they made a big push into industrial coatings. And we were one of the early adopters. And very, very early on, I discovered that there was something there for my business. There was additional value by being involved with industrial coatings. So I added the NACE certification. And then a number of years later, actually, Benjamin Moore sort of got out of that business. We were a Benjamin Moore dealer. And so that means we got out of that business. And I found that the inspection was still a valuable tool for me. And so I kept up my certification. It's not a huge part of my business, but I'll do 2 or 3 inspection jobs a year, and they pay a couple bucks. But more than that, they're fun. I enjoy them very much.
That's awesome. There's not too many inspectors around down by our way.
There's not a lot of inspectors, and also what I do on top of that, because of some of my just business knowledge and experience, I can add a lot to the inspection process. And so I have a number of customers. A much bigger piece of my business is actually I'll do inspections and then I'll manage the projects on
Ah,
top of that, almost as a GC, but specific to paint.
that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's been a nice little niche for me.
Yeah. Now you also write. I know you write because I see your blog.
Yep, I
Um,
do. I do a lot of writing.
could you tell me about what you love to write about?
Sure. So it's interesting. That's a great way of asking that question. So what got me into this is I had been writing for years, for decades, for one of the trade magazines, uh, uh, not paint, excuse me, the Paint Dealer magazine. And about a year ago, they closed up. And so I started blogging. I just started taking the same, once a month writing that I was doing and putting it up online. And in a very short period of time, I found a tremendous following among independent paint retailers in general, as well as Benjamin Moore retailers in specific. And so I shared what I was finding with Benjamin Moore, who I knew management obviously for many years. My family had been a dealer for 112 years.
Wow.
So I shared with them what was going on, and we decided that this was an opportunity to use some of that to start speaking to Benjamin Moore retailers. So I'm actually now, just over the last few weeks, starting to get into writing and providing content for a lot of topics that are really new to me. And so I'm really looking forward to sharing a lot of that. You're going to see the next 2 or 3 months for me is going to look very much the same as what you see now. And a little after that, you get into that 3-4 month range. And we're going to have a lot of new content for independent paint retailers, as well as in general, as well as specifically Benjamin Moore retailers.
Oh, awesome. That's exciting. I'm sure for you.
Yeah, it's really been
Yeah.
a lot of fun. I'm having the time of my life.
Okay, awesome. So basically the my whole spiel here is selfishly I get to speak to people I'm interested in, and they
Yeah.
don't necessarily have to be in the painting industry. As I told you before, I just spoke to somebody who owns a window cleaning company.
Yep.
I'm going to speak to a gentleman from Sandler Sales
I
next.
don't know them.
And it's just a sales approach that some people
Yep.
use.
Yep.
So I get to call and ask people if they'll talk to me, and I get to
That's
hear
cool. Yeah.
the great things that they tell me. So I'm basically going to go down. The questions are all random and
Yeah.
might have to do with the industry, might not.
Yeah.
So
Let's have them. Let's have them.
cool. Could you tell me, outside of work, outside of writing, outside of Benjamin Moore, um, what do you love to do?
Well, my fiance and I and my daughter, when she's at home, she's away at school, we spend a lot of time in the woods. We love hiking. Do a lot of cooking. This weekend, I was alone. My daughter's out of town at school, as I mentioned. My fiance was out of town for a concert, and so I spent the weekend at home. Basically nesting. I love cooking. I dried a lot of fruits. I ship them out to my whole family this time of year. Make a big batch of applesauce. Made probably 3-4 gallons of applesauce. I jar it and preserve it and ship that out to my family. So that's the kitchen definitely gets a lot of my time on the weekends. I love it.
And it's another creative
Yeah.
outlet, like
Yeah,
writing.
it's definitely a very creative outlet for me.
Yeah, I love that as well. Definitely. Um, could you tell me, this could be personal, it could be business wise, what your biggest failure was?
Uh, I've had a few failures along the way. I don't know that necessarily I could pick one as necessarily the biggest. I'm divorced, so on a personal level, you'd obviously have to say that that's been probably my biggest failure. I've run for office before and won, and I've run for public office before and lost. You would have to point to losing an election as a failure. But I don't actually look at failure the same way as a lot of people do. There are things that I've attempted in my life that I did not succeed at. And so by definition, those are failures. But I don't look at them as failures. I see it more as just part of the process of living my life. But for sure, I would have to say on a personal level, getting divorced is a pretty
Yes.
disappointing. It's a pretty disappointing act to go through.
Yes, I've been through that, so I
Yeah,
understand.
so yeah, it's tough.
And that's a great answer. Pretty much follow that same ideal. I like
Yeah.
you always learn from you learn from things that don't go right or the way that you want them, and
Right.
hopefully you don't do them again.
Some experiences in life, Ryan, it's interesting. Some experiences in life you can only get by not succeeding. Right. And notice I didn't say failing. I said not succeeding. Right. And so what I've done by not succeeding is I've proven that that idea doesn't work, but that's not failing. I'm still going to try something else.
Awesome, that's awesome. Uh, Flip it around. How
Yeah.
about your biggest win?
Well, certainly this is one of them. My new position at Benjamin Moore definitely caught a lot of people, including probably a lot of people in this building. By surprise. I was a retailer for 30 something years, and even though I had consulted for many of the paint manufacturers over the course of my career, nothing as upfront as this. And so this is certainly one of the great successes, and I'm very proud of this accomplishment. I turned my entire career around in, the course of 6 months. I sold 2 stores and transitioned into this corporate job. So I'm pretty proud of that work. And I've mentioned before, answering the other question, I was publicly elected twice. I served actually on a board of education for a very large school district where my daughter was involved, when she was growing up. And I was actually selected twice by my fellow board members to serve as their president. I was very proud of that accomplishment. We did a lot of really great work in those 2 years. And so for sure, as far as accomplishment goes, that would be near the top of my list. But those are sort of the accomplishments that you can touch and feel in life. The greatest accomplishment that I've had in my life, by far, nothing even comes close to it. Is I've been, in my view, a good parent, and I think my daughter would agree. And nothing competes with that, in my view.
Cool. So you kind of led me into my other question. Thinking back to the paint store, you've interacted, I'm sure, with people every day.
Yeah.
Could you recall just your most favorite person who walked in that door every day?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I have a friend of mine, Stewie. He's one of my best friends from the very beginning. And at the time that I came into the business, I've known Stewie most of my life. The time I came into the business full time in 1988, Stewie and his father were customers of my father at the time.
Oh, wow.
And so Stewie would come in, and they were very busy, and they bought all their paint themselves. They didn't have a crew that did it. They bought it all and distributed it to their different crews. And so I would see Stewie and his father every morning. And Stewie was a paint geek who was a huge Yankee fan, who loved his family, and just a lot of similar sort of characteristics to the things that are important to me. And so we hit it off, and to this day, he's still one of my closest friends. This weekend, I'm going to his son's wedding. His son worked for me for 5 years. So, just a great connection there. And he's, without a doubt, one of my favorite people to ever walk through the store and through the front door of the store. And I hung on to him because he was that interesting to be with.
Awesome. So you were your whole family's been in the painting business for over 100 years.
Yeah, this is my great grandmother. Interestingly enough, my great grandmother, we believe is likely that she bought paint from Benjamin Moore. And when I say Benjamin Moore, I don't mean the company that I'm currently working for. I mean the man who started the company that I'm currently working for. He was still on the road, still doing sales up in the New York metro area up till around 1915 or so, 1920. My great grandmother and great grandfather started their business in 1907. We were a Benjamin Moore dealer right from the beginning, and so we don't know. Obviously, there's no Instagram or selfie of my great grandmother with Benjamin Moore, but we have really strong reason to believe that she did. And so yes, I've been doing this for a very long time.
This isn't one of my questions, but what do you think, this might be too broad, what do you think the biggest change in the painting industry has been? as far as the coatings themselves?
So when I was a kid, when I was a kid in the stores, the only thing we sold, the offerings were so much more, uh, uh, so much less open than they are right now. We basically had 3 or 4 products, and they came in 5 colors, and that was it, right? And so wall paint when I was a kid was oil based. It was Alkensani flat. You could get an eggshell finish if you wanted a product called Delamel eggshell, but nobody used it because it was very expensive. And so Alkensani flat, you couldn't tint it. It came in 2-gallon cans. You got white, linen white, bone white, Navajo white, and
That was
that
it.
was it. And I saw that when I came into the business, that was probably 75% of our volume was just white and off white, maybe more. And in my time in the stores, I saw, automatic tint machines become standard, and shaking machines that could spin at a much faster rate become standard. And all of a sudden the world changed for us, and your typical order became, your typical 15-gallon order became, 7 or 8 gallons, 7 or 8 colors, 2 or 3 gallons each color, as somebody painted their house or an apartment. When I was first started in the business, if somebody was painting your house and they needed 20 gallons, they would come in and buy 10 gallons of white for the ceiling, 10 gallons of bone white for the walls, and that was it. You'd be done.
Huh.
So that's been
Did
a very big change.
was everybody open to these changes? I know change is scary sometimes.
Yes, I would say that for the most part, customers were open to the changes. It was a big change in the store. My first Benjamin Moore color display rack was circular, so it spun around like the cards that you buy in like the drugstore,
Yeah.
right? So be on a rack, you could spin it to see the other side. Maybe there were 150 colors on it. The whole thing was only about 4 feet tall and just a few feet around. Now, my stores when I left had 12-foot Benjamin Moore displays, and some of the bigger stores, they have them up to 20 feet now.
Oh
And
yeah.
they're just walls of color. We didn't have anything like that when I was younger in the business.
It's amazing. It is amazing. My
Yeah,
father, who was in the painting business his whole life too, he's passed away now, but um, he was very reluctant to change anything. So
yeah,
if a new product came out, I always like to try new things and
yeah.
see how it goes. But him and my uncles were all in the painting industry. They're a little old school and not really open for a lot of change until they see that it works.
And there's a lot of that in the paint business. It's very difficult in the paint business. I feel more challenging than other businesses. It's very difficult to get people to adopt, to something new.
Mm-hmm. Is that something that you would be dealing with the retailers in your
So
position?
not so much for me. I'll certainly be involved, I'm sure, in the communications piece of that, but that won't be my messaging. That would be, Benjamin Moore messaging as they bring out new products and stuff like that. I'm sure I'll help because I have this network sort of set up, and we're setting up even more, means of reaching their customers. But I wouldn't think that would be me doing that messaging. No.
Okay. All right. This is a fun one. So you woke up tomorrow morning and you won the lottery. Would you do anything different?
So that's a great question. Right now, if I woke up tomorrow and won the lottery, I would keep coming to work because the truth is I'm having the time of my life. I just built this career, and the CEO of the company, Dan, the guy who hired me, really did a great job of letting me carve out what topics are interesting to me and understanding where I could really help the most. And so, at least for now, I'm in my dream job. I wake up every day and I'm so excited to be doing what I'm
Awesome.
doing. So I probably wouldn't do anything different. I have a lot of time to vacation and stuff within the confines of my job. So I probably wouldn't do anything different. I'm not so sure. Maybe if I won the lottery, I'd be doing this. I plan on doing this for another 4 or 5 years before I retire. I'm 56 now. Maybe I'd cut that down to 2 or 3, right? But for the time being, honestly, Ryan, I'm having the time of my life.
Awesome. I enjoy your work. I don't know. I really do. I like that I'm talking to you today, and I get to go out every day and do estimates and talk to new people. And not everyone is, a basket full of roses, but
Right.
9 out of 10 are really.
Well, listen, when you do anything, you don't kid yourself in thinking that every blog that I put up, do I think is great work, right? I put up, I don't even know how much content I'm putting up right now. And so by definition, anytime you have 1,000 of anything, some is better than others, right? And so I just wrote a piece now, which will come out Wednesday, which when I read it last night, I read it back to myself and I was laughing at a couple of points, laughing to myself. And so I thought, wow, this is a really good piece. I'm really proud of this. By definition, that means it's better than something else that I wrote, right? And so not everything is equal, obviously.
Hmm. If I spoke to your fiance, what would she tell me your strongest personality trait is?
Interesting. I try very hard. I don't always succeed in doing this, but I try very hard to sort of view things through the eyes of the people that I'm with at the time. So when I'm spending time with my family, I'm trying to always, I'm not thinking what foods I want in my belly. I'm thinking what they want in their belly, and that's what I'm providing. If Guy and I, that's my fiance, if she and I are going out for a night, I'm thinking what is it that she wants to be doing, and that's the night that I'm going to plan. And so I hope that to others that know me, that makes me a little endearing to them, because I'm trying very hard to do that for people. But it's awkward to
That
talk about. That's an odd question.
that's a great perspective, though. I like that. And that's something I could use, and that's why I think talking to you and other people can hear it.
Yeah.
Um, that's great. How
And
about
here's the
what is?
thing, though, if you do that, you enjoy yourself more as well, because even though you might not have picked the event or the food, everybody around you is so happy that you're enjoying yourself more.
How did you come upon that? That
I don't know that it was something that I ever thought all that much about, but becoming a father really changed me. My daughter's she's 21 and she's going to be 22 soon. Really changed me when you have a kid and you start thinking about looking at the world through their eyes and their perspective. All I really wanted was for her to get the flavors that she wanted, so to speak, in her meals, for her to do
wow,
the things that she wanted in our weekends. And then through that experience, I realized this is a nice thing to do for anybody that you love. And so that's how I try to do that.
that's a great takeaway for this. We should end right now. That's
All
great.
right. Whenever
Um,
you're ready.
what? No, no, I'm just teasing you. Could you tell me what your, if you have one, what your most embarrassing moment was? That's a tough question.
Uh,
Unless you've
you
had
know,
one.
I don't have like any horribly awkward, I found myself dancing on a bar naked and the liquor wore off sort of stories. I don't have anything like that, but I will tell you, I did struggle with being embarrassed. I mentioned you before, I ran for public office 3 times and I won twice. And those 2 times were really exciting. Those were really fun nights. The time that I lost, it's hard not to feel embarrassed. It's hard not to feel like everybody's looking at you and thinking, "Oh, poor Mark." And so
Hmm.
that was sort of an awkward. I don't know if embarrassed is necessarily the right word, but that was sort of an awkward evening for me.
That's a good answer. But you put yourself out there too, so you have to know that it's.
Listen, I had this conversation with somebody recently. They were telling me that somebody had read some of my work and expressed to them that they were not in agreement and with my perspective, and even wondered whether or not I was the right person to be representing dealers inside a company that's really all about dealers, right? Benjamin Moore is all about their dealers. And so my answer to that person was this: I'm not trying to make 100% of everybody out there love me. What I'm trying to do is start a conversation. And then for those that already started the conversation with me, I'm trying to keep them engaged and continuing in that conversation. And I understand that some people through that process are going to be offended by either the way I am, because you know yourself, you're trying to make a presence on social media. The only way to get noticed on social media is to stand up and scream and say, here I am, here I am. Some people are offended by that. And sometimes when you're out there as much as I am and you have strong opinions, which I admit I do, sometimes I say things that you know people don't appreciate. Listen, I don't expect you to agree with me. I expect you to just do what I would do for you, which is listen to what I have to say and consider my perspective.
So great answer. And I have another question to follow up on that. So you do put yourself out there. You write blogs. You write here and there. How do you personally deal with a bad comment? I'm sure you've got them.
Yeah.
I mean, just an off-the-wall bad comment that you know you're a horrible writer, or this isn't true, or Sherwin-Williams is better, or whatever it might be.
Yeah. So you get those, Ryan, right? And I'm read at this point. I'm read somewhere in the 40 to 50,000 times a month range, and so you're not going to get read 40,000 times a month, and not have people that don't like you, right? And so to me, you have no choice but to just say, listen, you don't know me. So if you don't like my writing, I'm okay with that. There's magazines I don't read because I don't like their writing. There's books I don't read because I don't like the writing. I'm okay with that. If you say you don't like me, well, I'm okay with that too, because you don't know me. You know one dimension of me. You know me as the writer. And so you may look and think, well, listen, I disagree with Mark often. He's, you know, somewhat abrasive in his writing, so I don't like him. But you haven't seen the rest of Mark. I feed homeless people. I love my family. You know, I do all these other things. So you'd probably like me if you knew me, right? But you don't. So I just have to accept that, you know?
Mm-hmm. It's tough. I mean, I get some
tough.
comments.
It's tough. One thing I will tell you, Ryan, if that bothers you, run for public office and serve for a couple of years. It'll never bother you anymore. Because when you run for public office, it's not unusual for me. When I was on the board, it wasn't unusual for me to get emails that started, "You're an idiot." Like that would be like the intro. And so eventually you just get so used to it that it's, you know, it just becomes background noise.
Oh boy. All right. If you could do anything that you wanted, a skill that you don't have right now, do you have something in mind?
Absolutely. I don't even have to think about it. I've wanted to be a rock and roll guitarist my entire life.
That's the same answer I would have.
Oh my God. I play such a good air guitar, Ryan. I don't know how I wouldn't be able to transition that into rock star. But I've never been able to pull it off, but I want to. I still to this day, I listen to a lot of music that's very heavy guitar. That's just the nature of what I listen to. It's always me playing when I'm listening.
Do you play any instruments?
Not a thing. I'm talentless.
No. Okay.
No, I'm absolutely talentless. Absolutely talentless. I'll tell you a funny story, actually. I'll tell you a funny story. My daughter and I were taking guitar lessons for a little while, and I was trying my best. I was really trying my best. I'm left-handed, and the guy's teaching me right-handed because so many of the guitars, you know, they're set up that way. And so after a few weeks or months, whatever it was, I said to him, you know, I think the problem is that I'm playing this upside down. Can we switch it to left-handed? And he looked at me and he said, it's not going to make a difference for you.
Oh.
And I'm like, am I that bad? And he's like, yeah, you're really that bad.
Oh, no.
You know, hey, I'm glad he saved me a lot of money, right? I would have switched the guitar over and spent another $1,000 on lessons.
I was in the marching band, the jazz band. I played saxophone. I played a bassoon, and it does not correlate over to playing a guitar.
No, listen, nobody's going to scream and throw their clothing at you playing a bassoon, right? You got to be using a guitar. That's the only thing that does it.
You got it. What's the perfect day for you? You wake up tomorrow, what would you do? What's just a perfect day?
You know, for me, a perfect day has to involve time in front of my computer. I need to write or on my phone. I do a lot of writing on my phone. I need to write every day, even if it's just for diary type stuff, even if it's just notes to self. I have to be with my family. I have to speak to my daughter. If it's going to be a good day, I've spoken to my daughter. I've maybe cooked dinner for my fiance and maybe taken a hike or gotten some sort of fresh air in my lungs. That would be a pretty great day for me.
That sounds like a great day.
Yeah, they're fun.
The last question, but it's a three-parter. What are your three top goals for next year?
I hope to continue doing what I'm doing for the next couple of years, and I'm hoping that the work that I'm working on now hits the market and shows some success, so I can move on to some other projects. You know, we're going to be doing a lot of things, podcasts and Instagram and other things to sort of connect Benjamin Moore to their retailers and vice versa. And so I'm hoping to be able to do more of that next year, but different topics. Move on from the projects we're working on.
Cool. All right. Is there anything you want to promote? Do you want to mention your blog or anything where people can find you?
Yeah, the blog is markliptonpaint.com, and you can find me on LinkedIn, just Mark Lipton or Mark Lipton Paint. Just about anything with my name and the word paint is going to lead to me now. I'm writing in a lot of places. I've got a lot of content out there. So if you're interested, follow along, and I think you'll enjoy what people are saying.
Yeah, absolutely. It's well worth it. I mean, I love it. That's all
right.
Thank
you, Ryan. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. So I appreciate your time, definitely.
All right, man. Nice to hear from you. Take care.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you soon.
You got it. Bye-bye.